G'day everyone, Adam from Oz Commercial Sewing Machines. Today's video will be on how to adjust your walking foot on your walking foot machine, what the adjustments do and how they can improve the way your machine functions to get the most out of your walking foot machine. All right, let's have a look. Okay, we're at the back of our walking foot machine. This is a fairly conventional walking foot machine setup. With these horizontal shafts exposed like this. Some machines do have them concealed, like the 1933B, even though they're kind of the same inside, a little bit different. So we'll be doing a separate video on that anyway, but this is for any generic walking foot machine, including the Jack H2, H5, H6, and most other alternating presser foot or walking foot machines. Please realise this is not the same as a compound feed machine, even though for some reason people tend to mix those two terminologies. A walking foot machine and a compound feed or a unison feed machine is a completely different mechanism. It may look a little bit similar, but it's different. So this is just for your walking foot machine. So everything's pretty much exposed here, so it's nice and easy to see. Probably the major adjustment that most people like to adjust is this one here. I'll go through the 4 different adjustments and explain what they do basically, and then we'll do some more detailed close-ups of how they react when you make these adjustments, what actually happens. So this adjustment here is basically controls the height or the alternating height of your presser foot. So basically, if how it's set up now, if you had a set of stairs and the steps were very shallow, this would just shuffle up the steps in small increments. The higher you take this nut, which is a 14 mil on this particular machine, they're generally a 13 or a 14 mil. Generally, the higher you take it up the slide here, the higher the feet walk, which it can be really handy when you're coming to a thickness and you want to climb up over that thickness. That outer foot lifts higher and will be able to grab the lip of the incoming higher component of the sewing and feed up over it, and also helps to climb off the back too, because your feet are traveling further. So as your inner foot comes down, it allows the outer foot to release, so it will climb off things better as well. So that's a really important one. The other adjustment is down here. Now this is basically, I guess for want of a better term, a differential feed. This adjustment here adjusts how much your upper feed walks in comparison to your feed dog. So generally when it's in a neutral position, which is where this kind of is at the moment, your feed dogs are feeding at the same rate as your outer presser foot. So everything's traveling synchronized. When you adjust this, it actually makes your outer foot walk faster or slower than your feed dogs. So in theory, if you have 2 layers of fabric, you can actually make one feed faster than the other, or slower depending on where you've got it adjusted. So if you're having a problem where you're getting to the end of a seam and you're getting a differential where your 2 seams were misaligned like that or like that, you can actually adjust this and it will compensate for that. So it will feed that top layer a little bit more efficiently or faster than your feed dogs do. So then at the end you get evenness. So essentially that's what it's about. It's a little bit of tweaking backwards and forwards, but that's essentially what it does. We'll show you that in closer detail in a sec. The other 2 adjustments are these 2 here. So this fella here adjusts how your 2 feet react to each other. So if you loosen that and you let your inner foot or your outer foot drop, depending on how your machine's set at the moment, our outer foot's up, this will actually change how your inner foot and your outer foot relate. So at the moment, our 2 feet are climbing off the plate probably about the same rate. Say, for example, 2 millimeters off the plate. When you adjust this, once you let that sit, you can actually make your outer foot climb high and your inner foot just hops a little bit. You can actually change the individual height of the feet in relationship to each other. The benefits of why you would do that, possibly if you're sewing something, you might want the outer foot to climb higher. It'll help climb up onto a lump better. Of course, it's the one that moves. The outer foot moves. The inner foot is stationary. It only goes up and down. So the outer foot plays a major role in reaching forward, grabbing the sewn item and pulling it backwards. So that may help with that. Generally, but you'd leave it neutral. Just be mindful, once you do adjust that, it's a little bit of toing and froing if you don't know what you're doing. So I would recommend maybe just talking to your tech about that. These adjustments here you can do. Generally, your machine will normally come with a spanner with both of these 10 mil and 14 mil nuts, so you can adjust them yourself. These are also a 10 mil as well. So that's how that adjusts the relationship between your 2 feet, the height they climb at. This fella here essentially controls only the outer foot, and it sets how forward it is or rearward it is in relation to the feed dog. So if I loosen that and I push my outer foot forward, my outer foot now will climb, will actually reach up past the front of my inner foot. So you're basically adjusting the alignment. They'll still be synchronized because we haven't adjusted this fella. So they'll still be, your outer foot will still be synchronized with your feed dogs, but it will just reset it so that it's moving in a more forward position or rearward position, depending where you set it, but they'll still be synchronized with your feed dogs. But again, I'll show you that so you can get your head around that. But that's essentially your 4 adjustments. Okay, for this first demonstration, we're just going to run the machine at pretty much the factory setting of how high the presser foot climb. This is going to be our first adjustment. So I'm just going to run this, and you'll be able to see the 2 feet and how high they're climbing off the plate. You can see there your outer foot's probably lifting, you know, 1.5 millimeters, and the inner foot's doing about the same. You can see there how far the outer foot is up. So we're going to come around the back here. We're going to make this adjustment. Okay, we're going to make this adjustment here. I'll see if I can turn around so you can see there we go, the back of the slide in here. Okay, so we're going to undo this nut. You can see now our arm's nice and loose. Now this can be a little bit tight because when you're lifting this up, you're obviously going to be moving all this mechanism here. So sometimes you can actually turn the hand wheel over. There we go. You can see that makes it a bit easier because it's moving the mechanism for you, so everything loosens up a bit. Now just for, I guess, to show the full extent, we're actually just going to move that right up to the top. You don't necessarily have to have it up there, but we're going to move it right up to the top just so you can see now the difference. Okay, we're going to run the machine now. We've adjusted our presser foot height, or our climbing height, and we'll see how it looks. You can see now how much higher they're climbing. Maybe double, maybe not quite 70-80% more, but you might find that very helpful. Okay, the next adjustment we're going to make is this one here, which is, we'll call it our differential feed. So you can see here I've taken the plate off, I've drawn a black line on the feed dogs and the outer foot. I'm just going to turn the machine over slowly by hand, and you'll see how essentially the foot and the feed dogs are pretty much synchronized. You can see there those 2 black lines are pretty much staying synchronized as they move backwards. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is this is a 10mm, I'm going to adjust this all the way to the bottom. Again, these can be a bit stubborn sometimes just because of the way the mechanism is. Tap it down. Okay, that's the bottom. I'll do it again. You can see the front foot's coming forward quite quickly. It's matching up there. But as we go rearward, I'll just lift that presser foot a bit just so they're not rubbing together. Might help. Okay, so you can see they're similar. And then you can see the presser foot's actually starting to move back faster than the feed dogs. So that would then, of course, pull the top layer quicker than the bottom. You can see there when I turn it backwards and forwards. So you can see that you're getting gain on the upper foot. Okay, so we're going to now adjust it the other way. We go right to the top of the slide. Of course, we should get the opposite now. So the feed dogs are now moving, or rather the outer foot's moving much slower. You can see they're almost lining up there. And you can see The feed dogs are moving much faster than the presser foot. So now essentially the top layer is being fed slower than the bottom layer. Okay, so that's what we're going to call our differential feed action. We're going to try and get it back to neutral, which is generally towards the bottom of the slide, or probably about a third of the way, or 2/3 or a third, depending on which way you're looking at it, but more bottom biased. We'll try there. We'll have a look. Okay, that's not too bad. You can see there possibly the foot's moving maybe a bit quicker, but you can see now, you can essentially see how that adjustment works. So you might find that handy. The other two adjustments are something which generally wouldn't need to adjust, but I'll adjust them and I'll show you what they do anyway, just so that you understand what it's all about. Okay, the next adjustment we're going to make is at the top here. So that's the adjustment to set how high our feet walk in relation to each other, if you want one to walk higher or lower. So we're just going to have a run here and see how they're going at the moment. So you can sort of see they're basically climbing at a similar height. Okay, so the basic theory is if you want your outer foot to climb higher, you lift your inner foot up. Now, as much as you, this is a basic approximation, but as much as you lift the inner foot, that's how much you're going to give to your outer foot when it releases. So I'll show you what I mean. We're going to loosen this nut up here. Okay, we're going to push our inner foot down onto the plate, clunk, here we go. We'll tighten it back up. So now that height that now the other thing you got to be mindful of here too is that you don't get any end play in this shaft. You can see this collar can move in, and I've just moved that away. You can see the gap there between the bushing and that lever. So we want to make sure that that's pushed in, there's no gap there. Okay, we'll nip it up there. And now we should see quite a difference now. We should see the outer foot walking quite a bit higher. You can see now that we've gone to the point where the outer foot's walking, but the inner foot's not releasing. It's because we've gone too far. So again, if we want our inner foot to gain a couple of millimeters, we bring our outer foot, I'll come around this side, you might be able to see. Okay, that's pretty much where it's touching. So we bring our outer foot so it's just a couple of mil off the deck, loosen off our nut on top again, we loosen it off, we push our outer foot down, and now we've essentially, because they can lever off each other, we've essentially given our inner foot now that much lift. We've taken it from one and given it to the other. There we go. So you're basically, robbing from Peter to pay Paul. You're giving the leverage from one foot to the other. So now we're sort of back. Our inner foot's probably a little bit low. Okay, so if our inner foot is low, the only way we can give it more height is to take it away from our outer foot. So we bring our outer foot. Let's give it a millimetre again. So bring our outer foot so it's about a millimetre off the deck, off the needle plate. That's where it's touching. Go back a bit, we'll go about there. We'll loosen it again. We'll push it down so it touches the plate. Now we've just given that amount of lift to our inner foot. So we've just transferred it from one foot to the other. Okay, that doesn't actually look too bad. That looks quite balanced. Now be mindful, that all depends on how much we've adjusted on that slide at the back that we adjusted, our first adjustment that we made. If that's higher, then again, everything's going to be lifting higher. If it's lower, then overall everything's going to be lower. So sometimes when you make this adjustment, it's probably good to make it when you've got it up high, so your feet are lifting high. It gives you a good idea of what's actually happening, and then you can always reset that slide down so that your feet are just shuffling along at a nice height. But even that height's not too bad. But that's essentially how you do it. If you want to give the height to the outer foot, you lift the inner foot up the distance, loosen the nut, push the inner foot down on the plate, and then you've just given that amount of drop that you've given. You've dropped the inner foot down, you've just given that amount of lift to the outer foot. And you're just to and fro until it's where you want it to be. So it's not the end of the world, but it's as simple as that. It's one nut and just toing and froing. So just get your head around whatever you're taking from one, you're giving to the other. So if you want to give more to the outer, you take it away from the inner. So you just lift your inner a bit off the plate, undo it, drop it down, and then that now translates. So that now will transmit that extra lift to the outer foot. Okay, the next one is this adjustment, which, where are we? This nut around here, that little fella there. We're going to adjust that one now, and I'll just show you how all that does is it affects the outer foot. What I actually do, we can probably actually do that now. Let's say you can see there. Okay, you can see the edge of our outer foot is sort of flush with our inner foot. If you loosen this now, I won't show you me loosening it because I'll just stay focused down there. But there we go. Okay, we'll loosen that. Now what's going to happen now is our outer foot, you can see it's all floppy. Now the thing you've got to be mindful when you're adjusting this, where you have this, you know, it doesn't really matter. You basically just want it so that it's fairly balanced, so it travels the equal amount of forward and back, but a distance forward to the distance back. You just got to be mindful that you don't adjust it so that when you go to maximum stitch length, the back of the foot in here, that U-shaped back in there, where my thumb is, in there, I'll get a screwdriver. So this gap in here, this fork in here, you want to make sure that that's not banging against your inner foot when you're sewing, because that's obviously going to cause excessive wear on the whole rear mechanism there. That's going to load it up. So you don't want that hitting. So, but you can see how much, you can see before we had it set there, I can move it that far forward. I've actually got my machine on maximum stitch length, 8mm. So that's, I could actually set it, I could push it right forward, back it off just a little bit, and then I know, even under speed, that the outer foot's not going to slam into the rear of the inner foot while we're sewing at speed. But it means that now you can see how much gain we've got there. We've got quite a few, that's where it was before. And then you can see the feed dogs in the plate there. Look how much gain we've got. So now that's how far it's leaping forward of the inner foot. And you can do the same. You can transmit it back so that when your inner foot lifts up, your outer foot's not going past the front of your inner foot. So there's all those variables, you know, there's different reasons why you might make those adjustments, but it's important to know what they do and how they can affect things. And then, of course, when you're done, then you just tighten up that little 10mm nut there, and it'll stay. Okay, so that's our 4 adjustments. Hopefully that was helpful. If I talk too fast, or if you didn't understand a particular part of it, just leave a comment. And I will maybe do another video, or I can explain it maybe in better detail. But that's essentially your walking foot mechanism. I hope this helps, and I will see you guys later. Bye.